AI song playlist that tells a story. This time we're going to be creating a list of story plot points that we can use as prompts, as seeds in order to generate our songs using the AI song generator. Get ready and some coffee because the rockin' ain't stopping once we're plugged into the AI song generator. The tools that we're going to need at this point in the process include, of course, an AI song generator app, as well as an AI text generator app, something like a ChatGPT or a Perplexity, so that we can take the story concept, put that into the software to create the seeds that we can then put into the AI music software to create the actual songs that we can then construct into a playlist, which might be where we want to stop. We'll have a nice playlist at that point in time, but we might want to go further, taking those music files and create them into a video file, possibly adding AI art, possibly so that we can upload that to something like a YouTube. Might look something like this. Now, this is just an example, but I want to keep in mind what the end result will be so that when I do each step along the way, I can do it as efficiently as possible and not muddy up the next point in the process, such as adding the AI images on top of the MP3 files. So oftentimes, if we want to add an entire playlist to YouTube, we might want to do it on one file and add these timestamps, as well as possibly adding a playlist, each song individually, and then grouping them into a playlist. This method, however, I think is quite popular because it might be easier to get more people to view one video and have it go viral than the playlist going viral might be the strategy. I think the playlist is still nice, however. So at this point in the process, though, we want to keep this thing, how are we going to create this when we create our seeds and our song lists? So as, in other words, I create my seeds in something like a ChatGPT or Perplexity from the story that I put in place, I would like to be able to add that to each particular song that is created with that seed, and then be able to add a numbering system to the songs, as well as adding the timestamp so that I can copy and paste this into the YouTube so that it will be able to then jump to any particular timestamp. So I want to keep all that in mind as I'm creating the prompts up front, because when I enter this information into the AI music software, it will create a song title, but it won't give me the prompt and it won't even number it. So I want to keep all that in mind as we are moving forward. Now, the software that we're going to use is Suno. There's a lot of other kind of music software, and I'm sure the landscape will change as time passes, but the general concept will remain the same, I believe, which would be that we can make a nice story, a script based on the songs that will prompt us to do more research and possibly give us more context on the songs that we're learning. And so that's what we'll, so how can the AI software do that? Well, the two general formats that you can use the AI software would be, number one, we give it a simple prompt about something it should know something about, such as classic stories. We're going to be doing the Iliad at this point in time, and because the Iliad is something that's in the public domain, it's like a liver box public, right? It's out there, it's not, then that means you would think that all AI softwares have been fed that story, and not only that story, but also other people's, analysis of the story. So you would think then with a very simple prompt about a particular point in the story, because there's so much analysis about these classics, it will be able to then make a song using all that information, expanding on that particular point in the story. Now, you can experiment with newer stories, like if you put like a novel in there, like a Brandon Sanderson novel. He's like a, fantasy writer that's currently writing novels. Then I'm not sure how much information will be in the AI and that can pull that information, because it's not in the public domain. So you can play with that, but anything that's classic, like any of the classics, then I think this works great for it, and I think it's a good tool, because a lot of times, like if you're learning a Shakespeare thing or something to play, the language kind of gets in the way. It'd be cool to learn the language. That's one of the reasons you learn Shakespeare, but it's still it might be easier to learn the plot point, at least parts of the story, with a song narrative that can kind of capture some of the plot point narratives that we're getting lost on a little bit, or something like the Iliad, for example, which wasn't even written in English, then of course we might be losing some of the context as we convert it to English and whatnot, and it might not be coming off as well when we read it because of the translation. So we might be able to use music to kind of get the feel for it a bit in some ways. I think that, could be a useful tool. So in any case, so I'm not sure you can use other softwares at this point in time. I think the Suno one from my research is the best at this point in time. But you can test out other softwares as well. This one's at suno.com. You would think that no matter what happens, there's two kind of ways that you would expect this software could work. One is that you give it a simple prompt and it uses its AI generator software to kind of expand on the song to create the song around it. Or two, you get more specific about the lyrics and you say, here's exactly what I want in the lyrics. And then it creates a musical format of the lyrics. It just tries to put what you gave it text-wise into a song. So in our case, of course, what we want to do is say, I want to give you a simple prompt based on a story and then have you generate a general song feeling around that based on the information you know about that story, because you are connected, you have the story in your database that was the AI was created on, because we're using a classic story like the Iliad in this case, which is in the public domain and it should have access to. So we could go to ChatGTP or like a Perplexity. Some people, I think, kind of like something like a Perplexity at this point in time. Things could change going forward because the Perplexity seems to give you more like research points or data in terms of where it actually pulled the information. But sometimes those points are not exactly accurate. You have to check them all the time. So use whatever one you want. I'm still most familiar with a ChatGTP, and I'm using the 4 one, but you could still use any of the ones if it wasn't a paid version. By the way, this AI software has a paid version and a free version. I think I don't want to get into that in detail because I think those things will change, rapidly as time passes. But you can get more credits if you have more. If you pay for the paid version and so on, is generally how it's working at this point in time. All right, so let's say we're gonna do the Iliad, right? So I'm gonna try to say I want to learn more about the Iliad, and I want to kind of get in the feel of it, and I want to create a music playlist based on the narrative of the Iliad, which might give me a better context of it. Is going to be the general idea, as well as just be a fun story, because Iliad's kind of like a comic book, seems like. So it's a pretty cool story, you got crazy stuff going on. So what we could try to tell ChatGTP to give me a breakout of the entire book, which might be a good playlist in and of itself, right? And then it can give you a general playlist of the general plot points of the whole book, but it's a long book, so we might want to do it chapter by chapter. I was testing this out on the Old Testament of the Bible, the story narratives of the Bible, like starting with Exodus and going to Numbers and then the Kings and and that worked pretty good if I did each of the books of the Bible, because they're not really long, even though the stories kind of jump around a little bit later on, like Kings 2 or something. It kind of jumps around a bit, but it worked pretty good. But if you're doing something like long, like the Iliad, then it might be good, I'm thinking, to break it out on chapter by chapter and give us a song list basically per chapter. So you could try either one. So I'm going to go chapter by chapter. I'm just going to try chapter 1 of the Iliad and see where we go with that. So I'm going to go back on over here and I'm going to give it a prompt, something like this. I'm going to say, give me a detailed list of the events of chapter 1 of the Iliad. So detailed list. Now I'm specifically putting that I want to give it a list of the events. If you don't tell it the events, it might try to give you this like kind of the regioning or kind of story plot points. I don't want the detail. I want the list, because I'm going to depend on the AI software to take the major plot points. I'm going to depend on the music AI software to take the plot points and then pull from its AI to get the meaning. So I don't really have to give it, in other words, I don't have to say, give me a song that's going to tell me about, the meaning of this particular event and the impact of it and so on and so forth, because the song AI software will already have that, I'm hoping, because it's been fed on all of this information, which most likely, almost surely has to include, if you're going to feed an AI software, the classics, because they're available to be fed to it, as well as all the people's discussions about the classics should be part of, you would think, most AI softwares, because they're trying to get a bunch of stuff to feed it. What else would you feed it other than the classics, like the Iliad, right? So all I need to do is give it the plot points, and then rely on the software to give me somewhat of the analysis that it has in its system based on that particular point in the story. So I'm going to say detailed list of events of chapter 1 of the Iliad, and then I want to have it a bullet point list with no sub-bullet points. So I don't want it to give me a list and then sub-bullet points giving me the detail about that thing on the list. Why? Because again, I don't need the detail. I can use the song software to give me the detail. It'll be easier to enter the prompt into the song software this way. I want to keep each line under 200 characters, so it can be easily copied and pasted to AI song generator. So I'm going to tell it exactly what I want to do, because it might be able to better make the list based on, it's going to say, oh, you want to put it into a song generator software. So it possibly knows that what song generator software is, and therefore it's useful to put the second bit in here. You might say, why am I telling it that? You don't need to tell it that. Well, it might be useful to tell it that, I'm thinking. And it might be, and I want to keep it under 200 characters because when I put the prompt into here, we're severely limited. So I just want the basic plot points. Let's see what it gets. I'm going to copy this, by the way, so I can also put it into Perplexity and see what it gives us. So let's go ahead and do that, see what happens. So Apollo sends a plague to the Greek camp after Agamemnon's dishonor. So again, when I read that, I might not even know a lot about it, right? Because maybe I haven't even, read the Iliad in years. I watched the movie like forever ago or something like that, right? So now I might not even know much about this, but the software does, the AI software. So you might say that's not much to go on. This line might not be much to go on to make a song on, but I'm not making the song. The AI software is making the song, and the AI software has most likely been prompted with the classics like the Iliad, so it can tell me the pain and whatever, the feelings that's going on because of the plague that happened after, and it's all Agamemnon's fault because he dishonored the priests and whatever. Hopefully all that background kind of information is going to be put into the song based on just a simple plot point is my hope, right? So the next one, Chryses begs for his daughter to be returned, and Apollo, angered, rains plague arrows on the Greeks for 9 days. Achilles calls for assembly to find a cause of the plague, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it looks like that's chapter 1. It ends with the gods feast on Olympus as tension brews amongst mortals. All right. Okay, I'm going to assume that I'm not an expert on this, the Iliad, but that's kind of why I wanted to do this a little bit more. I research it more. Now, notice that when I listen to the playlist, I'm going to take this as well as the text of the playlist and ask then ChatGPT and Perplexity as I listen to it, give me the story of this point in the story so I can read the background and get more information as I'm listening to it. That's why I think it works good as a learning tool. Let's go over to Perplexity and see if I put the same prompt in there, what Perplexity gives us. I don't have a paid version of Perplexity, so it's just, this is the free version of Perplexity. So we have then, boom, Homer invokes Muse to sing of Achilles' rage. A priest of Apollo asks to return his captive. Agamemnon refuses. So that's pretty good. Now notice it gives us these references. So that's why this one's kind of cool. Now sometimes these references aren't exactly perfect. That's the problem. But at least they're attempting to give us references, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to assume those references might make it a little harder actually to copy and paste it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to take the simple list. That's the easy thing to do. And I'm just going to copy this list and I'll bring this over here. And I'm going to go boom. And we'll say this is going to be, let's call this chapter 1. And then I'll make this a sub. And then I'm just going to paste it. Now I'm going to paste it 1, 2, 3 because I don't want the bullet points. And then I'm going to delete all of the spaces in between. And I'm keeping in mind how this might be added to YouTube at the end here. So when I put this into the song generator software, it's not going to use this as the title of the song. It's going to create a song title, which I can't change oftentimes. So that means when I get the song title, I want to paste it in front of what I used as the prompt. And then I'm going to want to also number the songs on my playlist. And I'm going to want to put the number key on it once I take the whole playlist and put it into one song. So that means I also want numbers in front of this. Now I'm not going to use like you might say, well, I should just do this and put numbers, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to have it in a bullet point format because I'm gonna want to put the title or the timestamp before the number so I can copy and paste it to Udemy in the description. So you see what I'm saying about trying to keep everything in order so I make my system as efficient as possible. So I'm going to just put numbers like, I'm just going to type in the numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on into the numbers 5, 6. And this is a little bit tedious. There might be an easier way to do this, but I find that this is better than making the bullet point thing. 11 and 12. Hopefully I'm counting correctly at the same time as I'm trying to talk so I don't bore you too much. And then 15 bullet points on chapter 1. All right. So that's what I have. So that's going to be this part. So now we have the seeds. So next time we're going to take those seeds and we're going to put them into our song generator software, giving the software some simple kind of instructions, and then followed by this, meaning maybe like the genre that I want to have it in. And I'm also going to try to put each line in English and Spanish because to me, I feel like I can try to cram in as much learning as possible. I can still enjoy the song. I can learn the plot points of the story, and I can practice my Spanish by having each line in English and Spanish. And it still sounds cool to me. That might bother others, but that's what I'm going to do. You could do it your way, whatever you want to do with it, but that's what I'm going to do on the prompt. So I want to make the prompt as specific as possible because I only have, again, something like 200 characters. So we'll do that next time. We'll create the songs. Then we'll take these songs and we'll make them into a playlist, something like this. And once they're in the playlist, then we can download from the playlist to an MP3 file, downloading from the playlist. And then once we have them as an MP3 music file, we can then, by the way, when they're in the playlist here, you could just play the playlist and you could stop there if you want that. And then you have actually it gives you the script on the right-hand side. So whenever you want to find more information about that point in the story, you can copy and paste the script into like a ChatGPT and then say, give me the background of this song, which is cool. But you might want to make a video from it. So then once we're here, we download it. We then make a video adding MP3 files and so on and so forth. So that's the process that we'll continue on next time.